I'm a hair mineral analysis expert. I have a background in functional medicine, and I educate people using HTMA testing to maximize health, erase debilitating symptoms, and gain energy. I'm a multi-time kettlebell sport world champion, and I'm constantly searching for high-performance pros from all over the world to bring you this human optimization podcast. My name is Lisa Pitel-Killah. Welcome to a brand new episode of the Human Optimization Podcast. And I'd love to introduce you to Jadranka Bozja, and she goes by JB. With us today, an internationally published author, educator, and integrative holistic and health therapist. After managing her own chronic pain, she is on a mission to help others do the same. Using the latest neuroscience technologies, scientifically tested modalities, and the innate intelligence of the human mind and body, she helps people to heal naturally. Welcome, JB.
Thank you for having me today.
Oh, my pleasure. And we have so much to talk about. And so I always love starting off the show just by asking for you. I mean, we always have a place where we started before, right? And our journey of how we got here. And I think you've got a really interesting story that kind of brought you to here today, right? And I'd love for you to share that to our listeners and our viewers.
Oh, absolutely. I would be happy to do that. In my prime time, in my early 20s, I developed very severe back pain that a medical community or my medical caretakers could not really figure out what was the cause. After all the tests that came negative, it was just a big puzzle. So that made me dive into the issue. My background is educational background is biology, molecular and cell biology, genetic engineering, and biotechnology. So I understood biological and physiological processes in the body, but I could not decode my own back pain.
Yeah.
Until I came across somebody who was cross-trained in the Western biomedicine, but also in some ancient therapists. And that person told me that I was processing my stress, my emotions, my feelings, everything that was happening in my life. And at that point, quite a lot had been happening with my back muscles. And that was a topic that it took me a while to digest, because I was thinking, I can overcome that with my brain. I am a brainiac. I analyze everything, and I'm going to. And then I realized that actually my body was sending me signals that I do needed to make some lifestyle changes. But it took me several months to really realize that solution for what my body was communicating to me was really changing my lifestyle and implementing some other modalities. So that was that aha moment. And from that moment on, I really did spend tremendous amount of time studying the phenomenon of human health, wellness, and especially chronic pain. What makes us, what happens within us, that acute pain that is actually a warning mechanism that we do need to survive, turns into that chronic pain that cannot really be medically justified.
Right.
So that brought me here. That brought me years and decades of studies across different modalities with different mentors and people of influence, not influence, but people that maybe understand different perspectives and different angles of human health and chronic pain in particular.
Yeah, makes total sense. And that's what it takes, right? It takes that one aha moment for us to think about something in that relationship that we didn't think about before. We didn't make that connection. Let's start here. What are some of the origins of chronic pain that you have found with clients and that are a bit surprising?
So, there are two. Just to be clear that we talk about the same issues. So acute pain is when something happens, some kind of trauma, stress, physical, emotional happens, and brain interprets that as a pain and sends us signals. Okay, be careful, slow down, do whatever you need to do to heal. Give us time and space. Give your body time and space to heal. So that is the brain communication to the body signaling. However, all of that biologically should have cleared or needs to clear within up to 3 months. If it doesn't clear, if pain persists, and there is no medical reason really for that pain to be there, for the body, for the mind, to signal, okay, warning, warning, be careful, something awful is happening, you are feeling terrible. Then we call it chronic pain. So what we say at that point is that brain learned the pain. So information in the brain happens in those loops. It is processed the same way. And the more time we spend in that situation, in that energetics, the harder it is to step outside of those loops.
Right. That makes
sense.
sense.
So that's what happens when we talk about chronic pain. Usually you ask me about the sources, and that's true. People would tell me, okay, I had a surgery, a couple of years ago, but I'm still hurting. And if their physician says no, surgery was success, there is no reason that we can see why you are hurting. That means that person is carrying something, most likely some kind of trauma, or it can be something emotional. We don't know. We always approach every case of chronic pain with an open mind, non-judgmentally open mind. And that's the reason that most successful cases were people that had been suffering for years and they were able to turn their life around are those that are open to approach that life that way. Okay, we are going to step onto that journey, onto that path where skilled practitioner is a facilitator that trains and educates, but it is ultimately the client's journey. So sometimes those solutions come fast, and somebody's, as we would say, subconscious is ready to talk to them, and they listen, and they can make their own those aha moments, because there is nobody else that can do that for you. If you've been in the place of suffering for months, years, decades, there is something within you that is still producing that fear signal, that signals that your brain interprets as fear. So interprets as pain. So something also that I would like to mention, maybe just that we ease our communication and that your listeners know what we are talking about. So when something happens to us, signal gets shoot to the brain, goes through the spinal cord, crosses the pathways, goes into the brain. So in the brain, there are 16 centers all across the brain, 16 different places where pain is processed. 5% of the cells in those 16 centers are having role to process the pain, to protect us, to send the signal back to the body and say, hey, slow down, I'm hurting, I do need time to heal. So if pain persists longer than 3 months, the longer it persists, more and more of those centers, cells in those pain centers, take function of processing pain. So now we have 10, 15, 20, sometimes up to 25% of those pain centers, cells process pain. And that is the reason brain gets very busy with processing pain. It changes its own structure, it changes physiology, it changes anatomy, and it's very hard to step outside that. And that is one of the reasons we have such a huge problem as a society, because that problem is not easy to solve. For short period of time, we all know sometimes it is necessary for short period of time to deal with different type of painkillers, and that is okay, if there is something acute, of course, again, we do need that place of peace for body to do what body knows how to do. However, the longer it takes, body just recognizes it, and those pathways, got overcome. Brain just says, no, I'm not going to allow that whatever medication one is taking to block that pain pathway. I'm just going to reroute it and do my thing, and again scream at the body, I'm hurting, I'm hurting. So yes, sources of the pain are really individual. So the longer somebody is, it gets harder to step in. It's not impossible. That's one of the reasons we always educate our clients, or wherever we can. We say, okay, as long as you get cleared by your medical community and your pain persists, seek help. At least get educated what you need to do. The longer it lasts, the harder it is going to be for your brain to repattern those pain pathways.
Right. And so let's talk about natural pain management, right? And I guess so in this particular case, even talking about chronic pain, there's going to be different levels of chronic pain, like you just described, right? The people that have been there for a while and the people that have been there for a very long time. We're talking decades. And so let's start with just some of the natural approaches, but then maybe some of the natural approaches that come on, or I guess are utilized maybe more in some of those longer term chronic cases where it's going to take longer for them to make that adjustment.
So what we always tell our clients is it is their path, their journey. Our job is to educate them and provide the tools that they can apply as needed. So they literally, when they go through the program, or when they work with us, they have toolbox of tools that is applicable for any situation. So that doesn't mean if somebody has been in pain for a long time, sometimes decades, and we now understand there are structural changes in the brain, that brain still, due to neuroplasticity and neurogenesis, neuroplasticity, brain capacity to change, neurogenesis, brain capacity to create new nerve cells, that can still be revitalized, changed, and brain can heal. But that might take time.
Right.
And how long time it will take for somebody, of course, it is the amount that they spent in that chronic pain, but also of their personal genetic makeup and some predispositions that they've had, or health conditions or fitness condition, all of that comes into the account. So the natural remedies, as I said, first predisposition for somebody to even attempt this type of approaches that include holistic remedies would be really their open mindedness. They need to be open and ready to try. If they are not open and ready to try, there is nothing anybody can do for them. So then we get into that nocebo effect, which we know that something that might be helpful, if they're psychologically blocking the effects of something that might work for them, then it's not going to work. So there is so that is the first predisposition that somebody do need to be open-minded. And also, one of the things that is very fascinating to me when I started studying this phenomenon was just understanding what the pain is, because there is no simple definition what the pain is.
Right.
And when one of my teachers told me, no, pain is heavily individual experience. And I said, no, it's not experience, it's very real. And they said, yeah, but it's real for the person experiencing the pain. But it is not something somebody else can really relate. If they're chronic pain patient, they can understand from their perspective, but it is really personal experience. So how, what methodology is going to work for somebody, it would come of their personal makeup, of their belief system. And as I said, first predisposition, being open to it. And then second, we really believe in body-mind modalities where body and mind work together. We do believe there is a power, and there is a scientific proof that all of that is confirmed why it works. We have different neurotransmitters that can be secreted, or if we don't want them secreted, if they are the ones causing inflammation, we can slow down their secretion with the power of integration, body of mind, different meditation techniques. We have something, endorphins, which are our hormones that our brain produces, that can be 10 times stronger than morphine. So once somebody learns how to employ their own intelligence, body intelligence and brain intelligence, then they can on call produce those endorphins and endorphin-like substances that can block the pain more than morphine. Who wouldn't want that? Is it possible? Yes. How long it will take you to get to that point, it's really individual, but it is possible. Whoever is willing, that they will get there. They will get. So to answer your question, I mean, I don't know if we are getting there. So there is also another thing, that is very interesting. One of the studies, actually, a lot of people talk about that, but it is written that brain of people that are experiencing chronic pain is known to have deficiency is producing alpha waves. So we are talking now just about body mind medicine, right? So if we teach that person how to produce more of alpha brains, which would be relaxation, stress reduction, getting different tools. Again, not every tool would work for everybody, but finding particular tool that works for that person, that is definitely going to help them get into that relaxed place that will again allow their body and mind to heal and perceive their own pain and everything related to pain differently.
Makes sense. And I have some of the therapies that are interesting to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, you've got such a long list here of just some of the therapies that you've studied and that you've used. And so there's a couple I want to ask about specifically. So because a lot of people, I've heard a lot, and I don't know a lot about cranio-sacral therapy. And I
Okay.
know a lot of people may not be familiar with this. This may be something they're like, what is that? Can you tell us a little bit about that? Just how like the therapy itself and how that works, and just also in conjunction, obviously, with dealing with chronic pain as well.
So yes, that is one of those great therapies that is not widely understood out there. I'm
Yeah.
trained by the Upledger Institute, by Dr. Upledger and his followers, principles, and it is what we are looking there. We are looking at the cranial rhythm. So what studies have proven, and I believe somewhere in the 70s, Dr. Upledger, during his training for the osteopathic physician, they've noticed that actually cranio-sacral rhythm has certain number of oscillations per minute, and cranio-sacral liquid is liquid that actually goes around the brain, around the spine. So we are with one needs to be kinesthetic to really feel that, but it is possible with training to really sense it. So there are a couple of places on the body where we listen for that. And usually people that have trauma or chronic pain, there is dysfunctions in the cranio-sacral rhythm. So we are working in bringing that rhythm back into the normal, into homeostasis. Like, let us say, if it is 8 to 12 times per minute, that's supposed to go into flexion and extension. And somebody who has injuries, they can go into hundreds, especially if we are talking about traumatic brain injuries or any other type of injuries that will change craniosacral rhythm, because brain is pumping, or body is pumping that cerebrospinal fluid faster in order to get the nutrients to the places that are injured. So that would be really that first element of craniosacral therapy. And then second element that we introduce to that is somato-emotional releases. There is a lot about energetics and medicine that is based on that we function as an electrical and energetic body, and we apply those principles. We are looking at the fascia as well, if fascia is disturbed in any way, and then allowing that person to really express themselves or unwind, if you wish. And again, bringing that person into the place of homeostasis and allowing them to calmly get to the point where their body and mind can do healing processes by themselves.
Right.
It's all about getting the person to that place that body and mind can heal what needs to be healed.
Yeah, that makes sense. And so one of the interesting parts of this too is that, sometimes it does come back to trauma, right? And the effect that that trauma can have and how the body deals with it. And so what would you say, just, because, we've got Reiki here, we've got shiatsu here, we've got trauma sensitive yoga. And so what would you say? And again, I know everybody's different, but from a general perspective, because a lot of times people are afraid to release some of that trauma, but they don't realize how their body's reacting to it and the fact that it's still kind of deeply buried. And so what's a therapy that you think can be effective from that perspective, or therapies?
Yes, statistics are really all over the place, showing us that about 50 to 75% of people that have been diagnosed with chronic pain, that means those are the people that are in medical system, have actually have had some traumatic experience. And yes, trauma is relational, and trauma is not, people understand trauma like PTSD and warriors and soldiers, and unfortunately it's not just that. So many of us have experienced trauma without even realizing how much that has dysregulated, that event or whatever happened, dysregulated our nervous system, and then we act and walk life and perceive this life through that lenses of dysregulated nervous system because of something happening to us and we're not even realizing. And that's one of the reasons people don't even seek the help. They just are not aware, as you mentioned, that maybe something else is going on. So as far as my approach, I am trained with trauma-centered, trauma-sensitive yoga facilitator and practitioner, and I approach, and being specialized in chronic pain and integrative approaches to chronic pain, we approach it very seriously and slowly. And again, how long it will take for somebody to come to that realization, it is the individual process, because people have different experiences that brought them to the place of chronic pain. But one of the first principles that we look at, that we are going back to the body-mind medicine, that, one of the first pillars that we start working with somebody is that phenomenon of interoception. And that is feeling your own body in the safe environment, and being able to recognize if we are holding something, or even recognizing if we are not safe, and being able to empower the client to take their own stand into protecting themselves. And it is about bringing nervous system back into the that place of homeostasis. And that is, you asked me, how do I approach it? And I said, very, very slowly, if we don't know in particular. If we do know, of course, we go slowly, but then at least person is aware that something happened that potentially could be holding them back. But if somebody does not realize that it is very sensitive issue to even bring that forward until somebody is ready and open. So for those situations, I personally use a lot of subconscious mind, because when we talk to the subconscious, certain memories that are traumatic memories can be pulled out safely and play out safely and maybe dissolved or worked out in a different manner than if we are working with a conscious mind, with something that they are perceiving and still really dealing with.
Mm-hmm. Well, and those traumatic experiences and memories can be pretty deeply buried, right? For a reason.
It is a protective, yes,
Yeah,
absolutely. They are buried very deeply. And that is when, your first question, or one of the first questions, where are the sources of chronic pain? But again, everything needs to come aligned. For that person, they need to feel safe and be ready and have what it needs or what it takes to go to that place.
Yeah, absolutely.
But eventually, that needs to happen eventually.
Well, and that brings me to my next, kind of, I guess, avenue, because, we have to think about the stress that comes from us having chronic pain from whatever source or multiple sources, right? Whether it's a buried trauma from, decades ago, or whatever, what that might be. But it's the link between longevity. What does that longevity link look like between that and brain health? Because you're talking about all the pain centers in the brain, right? And that's gonna take a toll as well. So talk a little bit about that.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, studies, again, everything I do is based on studies and data out there. And there is a reduced lifespan, people with chronic pain. And it is known that people with chronic pain have increased inflammation. And now inflammation is everything from diabetes, high blood pressure, even, everything that is happening in the body that is out of balance has one of the causes is increased inflammation. So yes, definitely increased inflammation reduces the lifespan of the person. That is one aspect. Another aspect is even if they are living or while they're living, because of those brain changes that we already mentioned, they change their personalities. So they are really, it's the effect of the chronic pain. It is not just the person suffering, but it is everybody around them. You know, they lose relationships, friendships, families suffer, children suffer. We have children that are raised in households when one of the parents or family members is suffering with chronic pain. Those kids have different we now talk about epigenetics. So they are having, due to environmental, where they are being in environmental situations, energetic situations, they are being raised in, their biochemistry changes, and they have a probability to really develop chronic pain, even though they might not have direct correlation like injury or some direct trauma, but being raised in the household where people are suffering, those kids are going one day to be influenced with either, you know, there are different mechanisms that epigenetics works on, but most likely DNA methylation is going to be changed, or, you know, some histone changes are going to happen on their genetic materials just because of the environment they are raised in.
Wow. Wow. And that's that's an interesting one, because it's like, you know, how much does genetics play a role? And yeah, we're talking about epigenetics, right?
Mhm.
But just generational trauma, right? Because if you're living in that, and that is where you are every day, and that is your environment, you know,
Mhm.
what does that mean for 20, 30 years in the future for children?
Yeah, prognosis are not good, and studies are showing that we do have, you know, often I get asked, okay, you know, my father hurts, or my mother, or my grandmother, and that's the reason I'm hurting. And, you know, the truth is, pain is not transmitted by mutations. So that is really direct genetic transmission.
Yeah.
Something happens and there is genetic mutation in a parent that actually, when those cells, you know, during the procreation, we inherit that from our parents. Unfortunately, or fortunately, because we have a chance to change that. But because of the environment we live in, because of the attitudes that we inherit, because that we accept, rather, not inherit, but, you know,
Right.
accept, we continue to have the similar or same gene expression.
Right.
So that is the cause, that is the problem. It is not transmitted by mutation, but it is transmitted by lifestyle. It is transmitted by belief system, by thought process, by energetics, by behavioral patterns. That's how, you know, that is epigenetics that actually controls gene expression. So it's really not gene itself, but it is gene expression. So when people ask me, can I change it? Yes, you can. It is really lifestyle
Absolutely.
changes. We have 75% chance to really change that, which is huge because it is caused by lifestyle. And but, you know, one needs to be ready to do that. But yes, good point. Good note about all of that. Yes, it's possible to reverse those processes, but it is not easy because
Yes.
that's what we inherit. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Well, and I think too, I feel like a lot of people, when we test genetics, right? We
Mhm.
know what SNPs we have, we know what issues we have with genes, things like that. I feel like sometimes as individuals, we get caught up in that running our life. Well, I have a gene, I have a double gene for that, or I have, right? And now you're saying, you know, with epigenetics, which is lifestyle and all these other factors, plays a huge role in turning what I call the light switches on and off, right? There may be something there, but there's so many different ways to be able to change it, or support it, right? To be able to work in the way that you are seeking, I feel like. And this comes back around too to even going down the road of, a lot of people have MTHFR, right? Methylation issues. So they
Mhm.
don't detox properly. But there, I mean, I'm prime candidate, right? Homozygous C677 and heterozygous 1298. So it's like, but there's always things that you can do with regards to epigenetics, turn those light switches on and off, and support those systems that might not be firing properly. So I find it interesting that the research shows that 75% of that expression is lifestyle and just exposure. That is mind blowing.
Correct. And just to add another piece of statistics, only about 2 to 5% of diseases are true genetic diseases, meaning
Wow.
it is given to us, these cards are dealt.
Yeah.
Still, you could have healthy lifestyle, but there are certain predeterminants that we are born with. So
Yeah.
it is up to 5% health. So everything else we can, and we are almost obligated during this lifetime to do what we can,
Yeah.
to be productive, to and also raise future generations aware of their options.
And that's what this is. It's awareness.
Mhm.
Because I truly feel like so many people are, kind of running with blinders on or in the dark. They don't even realize the research that's been going on and the data and some of the practices like yourself are doing in the integrative world to be able to support things naturally without having to, either suffer or even go down, the road of using, drugs and things like that. I think there's a lot of options that maybe people don't even realize are there. And so one of the programs that you developed is called Eliminate Pain Naturally. And so let's dive into that a little bit. I mean, I know we've shared a little bit of it, but just because I think that that's and if you want to check it out, if if you're listening and you're on your laptop or whatever, it's eliminatepainnaturally.com. But tell us a little bit about that and give us just a little bit of a bigger synopsis.
So when I dwelt into this problem that I had personally, and first solving my personal issue, and then studying even more how to make it applicable and useful to others, I realized that it is a complex issue. And first, besides our personal diversity that might need customization, individualization, what are the generic issues that apply to all of us? So I found that there are three primary pillars. We already mentioned one, which would be body, mind, medicine, and really understanding how body is communication device, brain is just another organ, and there is that phenomenon that we call mind, the software that actually runs between us and the brain, and interprets what is really happening and helps with the signaling. And then there is another very important component is nutrition.
Yeah.
Because everything that is happening when body gets out of balance, when we lose that place of homeostasis, there is usually nutrition can help. And often people say, oh, I eat healthy. And then we get into that communication of what is healthy for you. And then, there is a lot of misconception.
Yeah.
There is a lot of misconception because, again, nutrition is one of those sciences that did go very far. If we are talking about longevity, if we are talking about maintaining health, reducing inflammation predominantly, really, we can do a lot in prevention. But also, when things happen the way that we don't want them to happen, we can again use nutrition to help us get back to the place of healthy.
Right.
So one of the things that people often ask, okay, if you would tell me just one of the things that what can I do before I even get engaged with you, or what into a program, I said, okay, just for 3 weeks, if one can eliminate gluten, unhealthy fats, sugar. When I say unhealthy fats, everything besides olive oil at this point, when we are doing elimination, and then sugar, and did I mention gluten? I'm not sure, dairy, and eggs. If one can be 3 weeks following some kind of whatever, as long, of course, if they need to be cleared by their medical professional, they need to do that,
Of
depending
course, yeah.
of their situation. And but if they can for 3 weeks just follow the diet with eliminating these 4 major inflammatory substances, they might notice some difference. Of course, we can go into very sophisticated programs with nutrition, but just elimination of these healthy fats and, dairy, gluten, sugar, and eggs, can really help somebody. And so many people get really helped with that. Why? Because they reduce the inflammation processes, whatever it is, and it's just healthy diet to live with. So that would be the second component for the diet. And the third component is movement. A lot of people, especially people in chronic pain, they stop moving, and that is very unfortunate, because even for the brain health, we do need movement, and we do need movement, to lubricate our joints, for everything else. I mean, it is so healthy. But so what we try to bring people back is we start very early, very slowly, that they start moving, even just going for a walk slowly, doesn't matter, it's just to make some kind of progress. And then when we make some kind of progress, we upgrade to a little bit more complex movement therapies. But, just getting people, regardless of their place where they're at, to do something, do swimming, do cycling, room cycling, doesn't matter, just keep moving, because as long as we move, life is really movement. Life is movement and breath. Once we stop moving, we start degrading. Once we stop breathing, we are done. So I always say, we need to learn how to breathe properly. We need to move. We need to eat properly. And then, of course, pay attention to what our body is telling us. And then, that is the secret sauce of the eliminate pain naturally.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, and I think it's funny too, because, as you walk through and talk about some of those things, and I feel like nowadays more and more people are becoming more educated and having a deeper understanding of some of the detriments that can come from gluten and dairy, and of course sugar. I mean, that's a given. But gluten and dairy, I mean, a lot of people, I think that they, that's a tough one for them, right? But it can cause some major inflammatory issues. And I think that it's been kind of pushed off to the side by many for quite a long period of time, just saying, oh, well, I'll never be able to give that up, or I don't think it causes that many problems. But it's surprising. And I think your 3-week time frame is good. I mean, I always say it takes 21 days to build a habit, right? So that's the perfect time frame to say, okay, what does this look like, and how can I manage without it? And so I think that that's the key to, and again, inflammation is the beginning process to all dis-ease in the body, right? So keeping that at bay and making sure that we're using, all of those healthy kind of lifestyle choices to our advantage is, I think, important. And what about, so you talked about taking out the unhealthy fats, right? Leaving in the olive oil. So what is your list of healthy fats to bring into the diet? I'm just curious. I want to pick your brain here about that.
I am big Mediterranean diet follower, and my country of origin is from the geographic region, so I kind of grew up on that. And so I know that there are a lot of theories out there, and different things work for different people.
Of course. Yeah.
But I do believe that commonality is that we all now agree that these seed oils should be avoided completely, or as much as possible, within the reason. So I am, this is a tough one, just because I know some people that are on very strict carnivore diet. These are not my clients, but some people, and they are doing very well. I'm not addressing any of those. But if we are talking about inflammation, if we are talking about longevity, again, I'm trained by the Alzheimer Research Association as well. I'm one of their instructors. So we do really believe in olive oil, of course, cold press, virgin olive oil, and that's what we advocate, and that's what is in my kitchen. The only oil that I have in my kitchen, that's it, right? Just because of the it's just a matter of choice at some point. And so you asked me, that is my short question, without getting into philosophies, what might work for somebody else, and they might get great results. I'm
And
not
that's
discussing
fine.
those.
It's bio individuality. Everybody's different, but no, that's interesting. And
Yes.
and again, I think we've known for years. And so one of the things, and I'll just kind of add this as a snippet, I'm sure people know anyway, but I always like to kind of bring it up. You always want to make sure that when you're choosing something that is processed, oil needs to be processed, that, like you said, it's cold press, it's extra virgin, and please don't put it in plastic, right?
Yeah.
Glass bottles is what it should be in. I'm lucky enough, I actually have a friend who's Italian, so we get cases of olive oil from Italy every year, which is made there. So I'm super happy with that. I feel blessed and lucky that I have that contact. But yeah, so just make sure you're choosing something that's high quality and it's in glass, not plastic. I think that's important.
Exactly. And potentially glass that is dark glass, not white glass, if you are going to keep
Yes.
that oil for a longer period
Yeah,
of time.
something opaque, if it's green or a dark brown, something like that, just to make sure that it's kept in the dark. Yeah, definitely. Well, wow, I hope everybody had an aha moment. And for those of you suffering, so JB, tell everybody here who's listening, watching, if they're interested in working with you, how do they do that? What's the first step?
So they can go to our website, which is theomegaplace.com, theomegaplace.com. And there is a link there to go to another site that is called Eliminate Pain Naturally. There is a quiz there where people can self-select and see really if they're ready to these type of interventions.
Yeah.
So, or there is also contact us if they are not willing to take a test. That's okay. They can go to contact us and mention your podcast, how they heard about us,
Yeah.
and then we will come back to them, and there is a free 15-minute consultation. What is very important to us, what is very important to me, that we see that we are a good fit, because that element of trust, fit, timing has to be there. Because we are working together. I'm there with them all the way through, but they need to be ready to be there for themselves. So we are talking about, a little bit about the history of what is happening. We are very good in listening to their stories, but we do not stay in the story. We are looking for that open-mindedness and readiness to step to the path of healing with respect to the history, to the past, and we use the past to heal the past and then move into the present and future, excuse me, hopefully painless.
Absolutely. Great. And so, so theomegaplace.com. You can also follow on Facebook and Instagram as well. And we'll have all of those links in our description here. And if you're listening on your favorite podcast host, you'll be able to find it there as well as on our website. So, JB, thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to be here with us to share just all of the amazing things that you're doing, and just to share as well the possibilities for those people who might be struggling with chronic pain, that there are options and there are ways to address that from a root cause perspective, because I really think that that's what's happening here. And so for those of you who are watching on YouTube, follow my channel. There's a brand new episode of the Human Optimization Podcast every 2 weeks. Give this episode a thumbs up. And for those of you listening on your favorite podcast hosts, give this episode a like, and we will see you next time. Thanks for listening to today's show. Head over to Pitel-Killah.com to gain access to some amazing free resources that will help you gain energy, erase debilitating symptoms, and be the best version of you. Remember to give this podcast a like and follow me on social media at Lisa Pitel-Killah. I'm here every 2 weeks with a brand new episode of the Human Optimization Podcast. Until next time.